Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2022 Mayoral Meet the Candidates event, hosted by the Barrie Chamber of Commerce and the Simcoe County Home Builders Association. My name is Steve Glover, and I'm the Public Relations Officer for the Barrie Legion here at Branch 147. Just a word about the Legion. The Barrie Legion has received their charter back in 1929, when several First World War veterans decided it was time that we have an application in with the British Empire Service League and become a branch. And we received our charter in April of 1929, and so we are Branch 147. It was for a meeting place for all of those who had served in Canada's wars, and it would also be a place where we could advocate for veterans' rights and focus on remembrance and for those who served our nation. So here we are 93 years later, and we're still here in Barrie, and we want to thank you for all the support that you've meant to us over the years. Thank you. First off, I would like to introduce the Executive Director of the Barrie Chamber of Commerce, Paul Markle, for our land acknowledgement.
Good evening, and thank you for coming. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I'm here for pratfalls and land acknowledgements, just to clarify, and I'm very happy to have made it up here safely. So, in keeping with Indigenous protocol and building respectful relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in Canada, it's customary to acknowledge the territorial or traditional lands and ancestral lands of the Indigenous peoples. The Barrie Chamber acknowledges the sacred land on which we operate has been the site of human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the ancestral land of the Wendat and the Anishinaabeg Nation. The treaties that were signed for this particular parcel of land are the Williams Treaty, Robinson Superior Treaty number 60, the Penetanguishene Purchase number 5, and the Nottawasaga Purchase number 18. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture. We also recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land, and we're committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Miigwech. Thanks very much, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Just some housekeeping to start off here. Washrooms are here at the back. We don't want to see any outside food or drink up here at this point in time, other than a bottle of water for the candidates. Alcoholic beverages must remain downstairs. And we ask that everybody be kind. Please keep your spacing as best you can, of course, due to the COVID situation. I would like to acknowledge the president of the Barrie Chamber of Commerce, Stephanie Gorley, and board members from the Chamber of Commerce. Would you please stand up? Thank you. And we also have two directors of the Simcoe County Home Builders Association here with us tonight, Shannon McIntyre and John Tom. Would you please stand up?
Sorry.
All right. So this evening's format will be as follows. Each candidate will have 8 minutes to speak. They will receive a 1-minute warning in the form of a raised card and a 10-second warning to wrap it up. We have asked all of the candidates to please be respectful of time so that everyone, turn page, receives an equal opportunity to speak. The candidates drew straws earlier this evening to determine the speaking order. You may have noticed that we have Rogers here and others, and they're going to be recording the speech portion of the evening tonight to be televised throughout the duration of the election. The candidates were given a copy of the election platform and the document that everyone received as you came in tonight. The candidate may choose to speak to one or all of the topics in the time allotted. Their time is their own. General conduct and etiquette of the Legion and this event requires that all participants and those in attendance remain respectful, use professional language, and to conduct themselves in an appropriate manner. Profanity, harassment, or unbecoming behavior will not be tolerated. As a nonpartisan organization, the Barrie Chamber of Commerce is the voice of business in Barrie and is dedicated to providing the community with the information they need to make the best decisions for themselves and their businesses. The Barrie Chamber of Commerce is proud to share the platform with the Simcoe County Home Builders Association. And now on to our first speaker. Our first speaker tonight, Mr. Alex Nuttall.
Well, thank you for having me here this evening. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and to the Legion for hosting this very special election event. My name is Alex Nuttall, and I've been honored enough to be the Member of Parliament in Barrie as well as City Councillor for 2 terms before that. And tonight, I'm asking for your vote to be the Mayor of the City of Barrie. My family moved from Liverpool, England in 1989 to Barrie, Ontario. In 1993, my father went back to England, seeking work, and from then on, I grew up in a single-parent home with my mother. My 2 older brothers, myself, and my mother moved into Mill Creek, which is government housing here in the south end of the city of Barrie. I was 10 years old in January of 1996. My mother was walking Wellington Street across Eccles when she was struck by a vehicle, leaving her permanently facing both mental and physical disabilities. I grew up in a family that paid $100 a month in rent geared to income housing, on welfare, and subsequently on Ontario Disability Support Program. Like many, times were hard for us as a family, but they say it takes a village to raise a child, and in this case, I can confidently say it was a city. Christmas Cheer helped with our Christmases alongside extended family. The YMCA gave us membership for recreation where I learned to play basketball and eventually played in college. Sports were partly or wholly covered through the Rotary Club Rotary Place Sports program. The food bank was there during dire times when we could actually make it there. And caring community members dropped off care packages for us at our front door. Because of the City of Barrie, I grew up capable, blessed, and with my eyes open to opportunity. The most important question that we have to face here tonight as candidates is this: why are we running? I'm running because the City of Barrie afforded me every opportunity that could ever be imagined for a child living in poverty. I'm running because I want those same opportunities that existed for me to exist for my children. I'm running to ensure that my children have a safe, clean city to grow up in, that they can get an education here, that they have a city where they'll have ample job opportunities, a city they can create a business in or invest in, and a city that they can retire in. My whole life, Barrie has been a city that experienced significant growth. When I first moved into Ward 10, where I represented as a city councillor, there were roughly 500 homes. 9 years later, when I ran, there were over 5,000. That growth has continued. While the City of Barrie has been growing, there's no doubt been growing pains. My platform is built to address those pains and unleash Barrie's potential for the future. While there have been hundreds of kilometers of new roads built in Barrie, there's also been a neglect of our current road, sewer, and water assets. As mayor, I will work with council to prioritize spending on these basic items that have been left behind. We don't have to drive very far from this building to figure out what the roads look like. I will develop a priority list for the City of Barrie with members of council and members of the public, including our business community, to address the current state of roads in Barrie. Over time, we'll be able to improve them and therefore improve the movement of goods and people around our city. Another pain that Barrie's growth has caused is the severe increase in taxation. As mayor, I will maintain the capital surcharge to invest in infrastructure, but I will seek to balance our operating budget each of the 4 years. Over the last 8 years, since 2014, our tax-supported operating budget has ballooned from $113 million to $172 million, a 53% increase. According to StatsCan, our population grew 7%. The cost per capita has escalated from $790 per person to $1,115 per person over this time period, or a 43% increase. There aren't many places where the City of Barrie can have an immediate impact on affordability, but holding the line on operating taxes is one of them. With rising inflation and interest rates, now is not the time to dig further into the pockets of Barrie residents. Affordability is a huge issue. Last year, my own mother identified she was having a very difficult time making ends meet. When I sold my family home, I purchased a duplex where my mother was able to have an apartment, and my own family lives as well. Before that, she was paying $1,750 a month for rent as a senior on fixed income, with a total revenue per month of $2,000. It didn't work. As mayor, I will work to get a variety of housing stock to market to address the supply and demand imbalance. Red tape can't be the determinant on when and if people can find housing, especially vulnerable people. Because of this, we'll institute a 90-day turnaround time for applications in the city of Barrie. We will invest in planning staff, whom are revenue positive for the city of Barrie, and get plans through City Hall to allow housing to proceed more quickly. But affordability is not an equation that relies only on expenses. It relies on revenue and income as well. This is missing from our conversation today about affordability. Barrie has approved residential growth plans that vastly outpace our job supply. With as many as 40,000 people commuting to Toronto daily, we need to help businesses create more jobs here, and well-paying jobs at that. The annexation lands have been vastly overzoned for residential purposes and will worsen the imbalance between population and jobs in Barrie. While Barrie could have upwards of 45,000 new people living in the annexation area, our current supply of employment land will likely yield about 10,000 jobs. With intensification, there's likely another 45,000 people moving to Barrie. That's 90,000 people coming for 10,000 jobs. I will work to get servicing of employment lands as a priority in the annexation area. I will also approach our neighboring municipalities, two of which I represented as a Member of Parliament, alongside the County of Simcoe, and offer servicing of their employment lands around the city of Barrie. Enough of the battles between the municipalities over who gets the growth, over what side of an imaginary line somebody works on. If you live on Madeline Drive in Barrie South End and you work in Stroud or you work on Georgian Drive in Barrie, you don't care. But if you work in Toronto, you do. Barrie can use our water and wastewater infrastructure that we have already invested in and have miles of capacity available in to create jobs in the area. I know what the commuting grind is like because I've done it for the last 3 years as a vice president of a telecommunications company. I know people want to enjoy the quality of life Barrie has to offer 7 days a week, not just on the weekends. Finally, we need a city where people feel comfortable and safe. As mayor, I will work with the province and the North Central Correctional Facility to end the prisoner drop-off in Barrie. Right now, releasees are dropped at our transit terminal in downtown Barrie. This is inhumane for the individual who is dropped on the side of the road in a city they don't know with only the belongings they had when they were incarcerated. If these folks don't get on the bus to go home, they become part of our homeless population, and that is unfair to the city of Barrie, and it's unfair to the individual. As mayor, I will crack down on speeding and modified vehicles, and I will work with staff to reduce speed limits on residential streets and develop an arterial road plan that helps ease the increased traffic we are facing. I want to thank you for the opportunity to join you today, and I look forward to earning your vote in this municipal election.
Closed captioning is brought to you in part by Raven Reads. Unbox Indigenous voices. Subscribe today at ravenreads.org.
My Uncle Cheney was one of over 150,000 Indigenous children that were taken to residential schools between the 1800s and 1996. My uncle ran away from school wanting to get home to his mom and dad, and sadly he didn't make it and died of exposure. When Gord Downey found out about my late Uncle Cheney's story, he wrote Secret Path, a series of poems that became an album, then a graphic novel, a documentary, and a concert. Gord met my family, and together we formed the Gord Downey and Cheney Winjack Fund. Together we are sharing Secret Path and other reconciliation resources with legacy schools, setting up legacy spaces across Canada, and hosting events like Secret Path Week to inspire all Canadians to engage in reconciliation. Before he left us, Gord asks us all to do something.
You're gonna figure it out.
Will you join us? Together we can make Canada a better place.
Hi, I'm Lise Mccourt, the president of the RVH Auxiliary. Although we can't be there in person right now, the volunteers, the people that you see in the blue vests, continue to raise funds for RVH. We've been a fundraising force for RVH for over 125 years, having raised $12 million in the past 12 years. The Auxiliary continues this work with our most recent pledge of $5 million. All proceeds go to patient care at RVH. Our jackpot draws will be held monthly with early bird prizes for each draw. In our first jackpot draw, the winner took home over $36,000. The early bird prizes include a combination of cash and gift cards supporting local businesses. The Auxiliary raises funds to help ensure that when our loved ones need care, they have the best available right here in our region. So buy your tickets early and don't miss out on your chance to win.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Our next speaker is Mr. Jerry Marshall.
Good evening, everybody. Many thanks for coming out tonight and being part of this political process. It's important that people hear what we have to say, what the candidates have to offer up, and really to share our thoughts and our vision on the city of Barrie. So certainly thank you for coming out and participating. And many thanks to the Chamber for putting on this evening and Simcoe County Home Builders Association as well. Thanks for setting this up and making this arrangements to come. My name is Jerry Marshall, and I'd like you to know why I'm running to be your mayor. What qualifies me to be your mayor and how I will tackle the challenges we face together as a city. First, the why. Over the Canada Day weekend, long weekend, I was out cutting my grass and one of my neighbors said, Jerry, like, you really want to do this? And the answer to that question was yes. Why is that? My wife Jan and I have lived in many different cities during my telecom career. Smaller centers such as Midland, Penetanguishene, and North Bay. Mid-sized cities such as Cambridge and Kitchener, and larger centers such as Ottawa and Vancouver. And now we call Barrie our home. In every community, I've made a point of getting involved to make our community better. I coach minor baseball and hockey, including our Barrie Colts at one time in the old Dunlop Arena, to an undefeated season, by the way. Had to throw that in there. Been a board member of a BIA, of a safety association, and of our local Children's Aid Society. I've been a member of both the Lions clubs and the Rotary clubs in different cities. In terms of experience, I've had a wonderful telecom career. I started as a pole climbing lineman, was promoted through the management ranks to the vice president's levels. My vice president role saw me overseeing $75 million a year annual operating budgets, staff complements in excess of 650 employees, accountable for capital budgets running in hundreds of millions of dollars. As my corporate career wound down, I became involved in local politics. I served 8 years as the mayor of Penetanguishene. I served 4 years as Simcoe County Warden. And for those unfamiliar, as warden, I was the head of the 32-member county council comprised of 16 deputy mayors and 16 mayors from 16 different municipalities. As a group, we were responsible for an annual budget of $500 million, 1,800 employees providing 20 different services to 18 municipalities. I was also the chair of the Western Wardens Caucus for 3 years, representing the interests of 3.5 million people living in 322 communities from Barrie to Windsor. This role saw me acquire $180 million in federal and provincial funding to drive fiber optic internet services to underserved areas. I was a board member of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, a group that represents the interests of 420 Ontario municipalities. I recall when I first got elected, one long-serving mayor said, "Jerry, you really have two options. Do nothing and get yourself reelected, or do something and take your chances." And I was always the do something mayor. For example, my economic development efforts saw me recognized as the Economic Development Council of Ontario's Political Economic Influencer of the Year. I'm not running for something to do. I got plenty to keep me busy. I'm running to do something. I'm running to be your mayor because I have the experience, the insight, and the passion to make Barrie better for my children, for my grandchildren, and for you and your families. My vision is a Barrie with a shared sense of humanity, with opportunities for all citizens to thrive, a Barrie that delivers the basics with efficiency, with consistency, and with thoughtful customer service. A Barrie where we embrace not just each other, but creative and innovative solutions. I'm committed to not just talking about the challenges our city faces, but addressing them in practical, cooperative, and constructive ways. Our city is growing and it will change. What those changes look like in the future we create depends on who's leading the way. I'm asking your vote to lead our city as your mayor. I believe together we are better, and together we can build a better Barrie. Thank you very much.
Focus better.
Partner better.
Sleep better.
Breathe better.
Love better. Work better. Friend better. Unwind better.
Everything gets better when you get active.
I am Gagwag. My name means everything.
Tom Longboats.
I am Wolf Clan, Onondaga Nation. I've run many different races. I've run to survive and to be free. I've run to win for honor.
His people might be lazy, but this one's damn fast.
My people respected our runners, people who carried important messages from village to village.
I need a guide to the next post. Dispatch carrier, sir. I can get you there.
God sakes, man, slow down. Who do you think I am, Tom Longboat?
No, sir. I am.
Running makes me feel alive. It's everything.
Tom Longboat was the first Indigenous person to win the Boston Marathon. He ran his way to international fame and became an inspiration to generations of athletes.
What kind of show do you want to see on Rogers TV? What interests you? Log on to rogerstv.com, fill out a show proposal, and tell us about your segment idea. We want to know what you want to see. Rogers TV, only on Rogers.
Our next speaker is Mr. Mike Mccann.
Thank you all for having us here at the Chamber and obviously the Simcoe County Home Builders Association. And I want to say we're in real good hands. We got some great candidates in front of me, and I think no matter what happens this election, Barrie's going to have a great future. But the next 8 minutes, I'm here to convince you why I believe I'm the best choice, that I'm the strongest choice. Hi, I'm Mike Mccann. I'm born and raised here in Barrie, and I've been to a lot of amazing cities. But you know what city hits me right here? It's Barrie. Politicians every day are telling us what they're going to do. Well, I'm going to change my gears a little bit, and I'm going to tell you what I've done. I've got a strong business sense. I've also got a lot of political know-how. So how's this going to help you? Well, I've been a Ward 10 councillor for 8 years in the southeast end of Barrie, and I think I've done a lot of good for this city. My first 6 months on the job, there was a high school that was desperately needed to be built in the southeast end of Barrie, and there was so much red tape, so much stoppage from City Hall to the county. And I had so many residents call me up saying, Mike, we moved to this area so our kids could walk to school. Now they've missed the boat and they're having to be bused to Innisdale or St. Pete's. That wasn't good enough for me. So I asked for an emergency meeting with Mayor Lehman, Carla Lab, the CEO, John Dance, and the Simcoe County Board, District School Board. And within 15, 20 minutes, I knew exactly what to do to get the school built. Next council meeting, I pitched the case to council, and I got a majority vote, and I got the school built. Second, about 2 or 3 years later, there was a police station that needed to get built. The police station was bursting at its seams. They were in 2, 3, 4 different buildings. The efficiencies wasn't great. So the police chief brought a proposal of $120 million, and they teamed up with the paramedics, and they teamed up with the firefighters. $120 million budget. I've got a strong business sense, so I took that seriously. This was my role to see if I could find some cost savings. I took it home. I came back to council the next week, and I was shocked to find that I found $20 million of tax savings. I got to tell you, that felt really good. But as mayor, I want to do more. I got a phone call last year that I'm never going to forget. I love when you have memories in life that just stick with you. We're in the pandemic, Toronto was shut down, and our beaches were being flooded by Torontonians and people from the GTA. They had tents the size of trucks, they had barbecues, they were leaving their trash, they were doing things in the woods that we wouldn't want to see. So I get a call from my mother, and she said, Michael, the beaches are atrocious. What are you going to do? She called me Michael, so I had to do something. So I had another meeting with council, and I said, guys, we have to ban tents and ban barbecues so we can have beaches for Barrie residents. My #1 priority is Barrie citizens, not tourism. And so as a result of that, I looked at the parking strategy, and I realized that we were only charging $10 a day for the whole day. We had neighboring municipalities that were charging $50 a day. So I was able to convince council to support raising the fees from $10 to $50, and as a result of that, it put over $500,000 in the Barrie coffers. So to me, this was a multiple win. We had a win because we had Barrie residents able to use our own beaches. It was a win because city staff didn't have to use our resources to clean up the trash. And it was a win because we earned another $500,000. So that's let's talk about the chamber. You know, you're the voice of business. Well, during the pandemic, I stood on Meridian Square fighting for businesses to reopen when there were governments and agencies that were saying that we couldn't open, and I was pushing to get business to stay open. I believe that as council member, I was the ambassador to the small business because I am a small business owner. So that is the fiscal side of me. Now I'd like to tell you maybe about the fun side of me, maybe the political side of me. I started a competition and all the elementary school kids called Love Barrie and Win. And this competition gave kids the opportunity to showcase why they love Barrie, whether it was an essay, a picture, a photograph, a painting. And I have to tell you, I said this probably 5 years in a row because we didn't do it during the pandemic. It is and was my favorite day on council because you had to look at the kids' faces, the nervousness, the excitement, because they were meeting the mayor, they're getting a picture, and then you look up and see their family, and their parents are nervous and excited, and that just meant the world to me. It meant the world to me because here was an opportunity where, as a politician, a civil servant, I can help market civic pride, right? Love Barrie, Barrie Pride for kids in elementary school. And I just think of the confidence-boosting morale that these kids will have because they go home with a memento that they can have for the rest of their lives. So that Love Barrie competition is what inspired me to bring the Love Barrie sign to Barrie. I brought the Love Barrie idea to council. The majority of council absolutely loved it, but everybody hated the cost. It's $200,000, but I wasn't building something cheap on our waterfront. I wanted something substantial and something that represents the city of Barrie, and that's strength, love, community. So I said, council, don't kill the deal. Let me go out and fundraise and see if I can't raise the money myself. Well, I went out and sold hats and t-shirts that said Love Barrie. I see a few people in the audience actually purchased them, so thank you. And I also went to businesses and residents to get donations for sponsorships. And I was able to raise the $200,000+ for the Love Barrie sign. And if anybody's, show of hands here, who's all seen the Love Barrie sign? Show of hands here, who loves the Love Barrie sign? Show of hands when you have relatives come from other cities or other countries, you're gonna go to the Love Barrie sign. The Love Barrie sign's done its job. It's shown that Barrie is a loving community and a caring community. And that's what I want for this city. So, now it comes to talk about what am I gonna do? Am I gonna talk tonight about keeping taxes low, giving the proper resources to the police, cleaning up our downtown? Am I going to talk about the environment, preparing for another 150,000 people? Am I going to talk about putting photo radar at all the elementary schools so we can slow our streets down? Am I going to talk about helping the seniors? No, I'm not. Because that should be every single person here who wants to be mayor in their mandate. What I'm going to do tonight is try to inspire you and maybe convince you that I'm the best choice to be the next mayor of Barrie. I've got a lot of business strength, and I've got a lot of political strength. And it's backed up with a passion and a fuel from my love of Barrie. And all I want to maybe end is that I've thrown a lot at you. And if you go home tonight, you think about me around election time, is this. Every morning that I wake up, I ask myself a question. How can I make Barrie better? Please vote Mike Mccann. Thank you.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
I don't care what the law is. I will never be a slave. That word, I hate it. It rests on my tongue like rot.
Peter, how does it feel to get paid for your work?
There are rumors freedom's coming for us all.
Freedom, you know that's all I want.
Chloe, careful. Real men would rather sell you across the river to America than let you go free.
Then I'll run.
I've run before. Maybe this time for good.
No! No! Just get her into a boat. No!
Chloe! Chloe, no!
Word of Chloe Cooley's resistance led to Canada's first legislation limiting slavery. After 200 years, slavery was abolished in Canada in 1834.
Focus better.
Heal better.
Sleep better.
Partner better.
Create better.
Love better.
Breathe better.
Learn better.
Laugh better. Lead better.
Think better. Work better. Friend better. Unwind better.
Happy better.
Everything gets better when you get active.
Guess what? We have another speaker. Our next speaker is Weldon Hashi.
I had to wear this hat because it was not too long ago I forgot what this meant, but I'm going to take it off for the Legion out of respect. My name is Weldon Hashi. For those of you who don't recognize me, it's because I'm in disguise. You might not recognize me with clothing on. In early 2020, when Doug Ford said clothing was not essential, I thought any parent knows that clothing is essential, and it started out as a farce. And I'm not that type of person, so I'm going to go back a little bit in history and tell you why I did what I did. I was the youngest person in, one of the youngest in George Brown College. I did a 5-year, 9,000-hour sheet metal apprenticeship, commercial ductwork. I've got a basic refrigeration and air conditioning license, gas fitters license, certified geothermal designer. I raised my son as a single father for 12 years. I married a beautiful woman with 3 stepdaughters, had 2 houses. And, things happen. You go through a divorce. We all have our ups and downs. I lost 2 best friends. I lost my dog, and I broke my knee. In this wonderful country of ours, when you're self-employed, you can't get unemployment or welfare. And because I didn't have a permanent address, they wrapped my leg up and they tossed me in the ditch in Toronto in a drug-infested shelter. I want to go back to when I was 20 years old, to a wonderful woman, Joanne, who used to work for Rogers. She just passed away this summer, bless her. When I was 20, she told me she was going through a divorce. And we had a summer fling. Her husband knew about me. They were living in the same house together, and he came up to me one day and he said, I swore an oath to stay beside her through thick and thin, and I'm not giving up. But as long as you're in this house, you're a house wrecker. You're ruining my chances of ever getting back with my wife. That's the last time I've ever knowingly had an affair, and Joanne never knew why. And I'm telling you this story about Joanne because we always stayed friends. She never knew why I broke up with her. She was madly in love with me. She used to film for the Barrie Colts. Anyways, she called me up randomly, thank the heavens. She asked me what I was doing. I said, I'm lying in a ditch. She said, why? I said, I'm homeless. She said, no, you're not. Come to Barrie. My phone was almost dead. I scratched her address in the dirt, and I went around begging for a pen and paper and then begging for money. And I came to Barrie 5 years ago, and RVH repaired my knee. And I was just getting back on my feet before I could walk. I got a job doing sales in heating and air conditioning. And my life was just starting to turn around when this pandemic hit. And I started asking questions because I watched a documentary about 15 years ago, How Big Oil Conquered the World. And it was a big eye-opener. Prohibition was started by the oil companies because alcohol was their competition. And they funded the teetotalers and the churches and the mothers, and they fought against alcohol to get rid of their competition. This has been going on for centuries. Okay? There is influence in money and in government. RVH fixed my knee, and when I started protesting, I got a phone call. Actually, it was an email from a woman. She's the youngest in a long-term care facility. I won't mention her name. She's in Scarborough. She's a native lady. She was on a bus and she broke her severed cord, and she's in a wheelchair. She was a prisoner in her room. She wasn't allowed outside. They would put the food on the door and knock and leave. She wanted to start smoking so she could get outside for a breath of fresh air. She told me she was a prisoner in this nursing home. Now, I'm screaming to high heavens. I said, who's dying? Are children dying? Because if children are dying, I will put a diaper on my face, I'll put a mask on, and I will quarantine.
but I was asking questions. And when she contacted me and told me her story, then she told me she almost died of COVID, and I felt about this big, and I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. What can I do? And you name it, anything. She said, don't stop. I don't understand. She says, you know, I'm afraid to die, but more than anything, I'm afraid to lose my freedom. And I want you to promise me that you won't stop. So I've fought through thick and thin, through marriages, through raising a child, and going through school, working 2 jobs, and this government did nothing. And there's so many young people out here, you're all calling me and asking me about the homeless. I live in a house, and there's a beautiful couple, and their son has been struggling with drug addiction, and he's been going for methadone, and he just recently found out about a drug called Sublocade. It was a miracle drug. He started taking it within a few days. He was almost completely done with drugs. He's been struggling for years. Why did nobody tell him this? Anyways, Barrie saved my life. RVH saved my life. Joanne saved my life. I was ready to give up. I was lying in a ditch, just praying that I would die. But I have fought, and I just want you guys to know, when Doug Ford said clothing was not essential, that is why I did what I did. I snapped. I've turned my back on the government. I've never enjoyed politics. I've never felt like I would even pay attention. I was never interested. But I blame myself and people like myself who have not paid attention as to why we are in the turmoil that we're in, the conditions that we're in, and I've turned it up. And I will not stop. After what Barrie's done for me, I want to give back. And I will never turn my back on politics again. And after this, I'm going to go for Prime Minister, and I'm going to take our country and our world back. Thank you.
Leonard Thompson, 13 years old, diabetes mellitus, 65 pounds.
Starve the child to let them live. The treatment's as cruel as the disease. It's a death sentence.
Dr. Banting, this could be it. He's the first to receive this trial. But will it save him?
It's not pure enough.
So we try again. And again. And again.
Before the discovery of insulin, diabetes was a death sentence. Banting, Best, Collop, and McLeod's breakthrough has saved millions of lives. Leonard Thompson's was the first.
My dad was a railway porter. It was just about the only job a black man could get. But he had big plans for us. Music would be our ticket out of poverty. I knew we couldn't afford that piano, so I practiced twice as hard.
Nice, Stacy. Okay, Oscar, let's hear it.
Turns out, I wasn't half bad. Then I found jazz, or it found me. It wasn't all easy, though. I faced a lot of hate, but I found my stage. They call me the man with 4 hands. Well, I don't know about that, but let's see how far this ticket takes me.
From Montreal to Carnegie Hall and far beyond, Oscar Peterson became one of the most recorded and celebrated jazz musicians of all time.
I'm Mallory, and I was walking home one night when an impaired driver hit me. He had been overserved in 2 bars before getting behind the wheel. If the servers would have called him a cab instead of serving him more alcohol, my life would be the same as what it used to be. I think servers play the biggest role in keeping us safe because it's up to them what state the person's in when they leave. Refusing service isn't personal, it's the law.
Our next and final speaker tonight is Mr. Barrie Ward.
Hello, my name is Barrie Ward. I'm currently Barrie's deputy mayor, and I want to be Barrie's next mayor. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and the Barrie Home Builders for putting this together, and thank you to the Legion for hosting it. I'll be very brief about my own background. I've moved to Barrie almost 40 years ago. I love the city. Marge and I have raised our sons in the North End. We've lived in the North End for 25 years. That's where we raised our son, and I've never tired of giving back to the city of Barrie. I think it's a great place. And I'm running to be mayor to protect the things that make our city a great place to live: our waterfront, our parks, our neighborhoods, our diverse economy. I'm running to preserve the services that residents value: our recreation centers, our emergency services, our snow plowing, our transit, and dozens of other areas that affect our daily lives. I'm running to enhance those areas where we can do better: our downtown, affordable and supportive housing, our infrastructure, and city hall services. Barrie is going to see a lot of growth over the next 20 years. In fact, our population will almost double if the forecasts are correct. And I am the leader who will guide the city through these next 4 years to prepare us for that growth. I've been the deputy mayor for the past 4 years, as I said, and I was acting mayor when Mayor Jeff Lehman took a leave of absence earlier this year. I know City Hall. I know the other politicians in the county, provincial and federal level. I know the issues. I'm shown I can work with city councillors of very diverse opinions and get them to respect me because I respect them. I will listen, learn, and lead. I wanted to touch specifically on some of the issues in the Chamber's 2022 municipal election platform, starting with business development. My focus will be on finding ways to help our existing businesses thrive and creating the conditions where aspiring entrepreneurs in our city are encouraged to fulfill their dreams here in Barrie. To me, that's the best and most efficient way to grow our local economy. That means keeping our industrial taxes low. We have one of the lowest rates, if not the lowest rate in the province. That means ensuring we have an adequate supply of service, industrial, and commercial lands so that businesses have a place to grow. It means creating the type of city where people, especially young people and young families, want to live, and it means encouraging a wide range of housing types, including affordable housing, so both business owners and workers can afford to live here. It means having a good transportation system, including roads and transit, that lets people get to work easily. It means working with the county and surrounding municipalities on economic opportunities. It means working with those that provide support to businesses, including at the Sandbox, the Small Business Centre, the Chamber, the Barrie Home Builders, and all the other business groups that to ensure existing and aspiring businesses get the help they need. And most of all, it means meeting with local employers to hear their concerns and really listening. I mean, listening is the number one job of the mayor, and working on ways to serve them better, including always striving to make it easy to work with City Hall. Of course, I will also work to attract new businesses and industries to Barrie. We should always welcome new jobs. I'm just saying my first priority is to existing businesses and businesses that want to start up here. If we could create a great environment for existing businesses, new businesses will also want to be here. I've already mentioned affordable housing. It is in the Chamber's platform, and for good reason. The Chamber knows that if we want our local economy to thrive, we have to have housing that people here can afford and want to live in. And right now we have a housing crisis. How do we solve it? We don't need more studies. Earlier this year, we had a report from the Affordable Housing Task Force. That wasn't my deadline, I hope. Nope. Okay. Okay. Housing Task Force. Let's do what that task force recommended. And we've already instituted some of the changes. We've changed our bylaws to allow housing as a right on institutional lands. And we've already had buy-in from the faith community. There's a group in a church in my ward that wants to build a 90-unit seniors housing complex, and a lot of those, at least half, would be affordable, and maybe all of them would be affordable. And that's the kind of thing we should be working with. Now's the time to implement the other recommendations of the task force, which include designating a staff person to handle all affordable housing issues. So they would help people guide affordable housing proposals through the system. They would go and look for grants from other levels of government to help us build affordable housing. We also need to consider other forms of housing, tiny homes, container housing, that sort of thing. We need to create a larger reserve for affordable housing with money from the new growth that will go into a community benefit funds. That brings us to the homelessness situation in Barrie, which is also part of the Chamber's election platform. It's an issue in every city in Canada is struggling with homelessness right now. And first of all, we need to always act with compassion. The homeless are Barrie residents. Barrie, of course, does not have a mandate to provide social services. That's done through Simcoe County, and I do sit on the county's committee of the whole that looks after social services housing, and we have approved the plan to rapidly house the homeless this winter, but it's not enough. And that includes the 50-unit building that's being, a temporary building that's being built at the former OPP station site. We need to continue to work with the county and many local organizations that work with the homeless to coordinate and expand services. And it's not just housing. We must keep pressure on the federal and provincial governments to provide Barrie with its fair share of funding for the supports the homeless need, such as mental health counseling and addictions treatment. There is one thing that I think the mayor can do, and that's to set the tone. And I've always said, when someone comes into the City Hall and says, I want to build affordable housing in Barrie, or I want to build supportive housing in Barrie, the mayor's job is to say, how can the city help you? It's not to say, well, we'll look at it, or we'll have to see what the residents think. It's to find ways to make it work. And I've done that myself when Redwood Park Communities and the Salvation Army proposed to build a transitional housing for families on Lillian at the Citadel in the property they have there. I mean, my reaction was, let's make it work. Let's do it. I know there were going to be objections from the neighbors, and there were petitions against it, but the thing is, the mayor's job is to make it work. Doesn't mean you have to say everything they said. And in that case, we made some changes. We moved it farther away from houses that it was going to back onto. We got rid of a second driveway, which I think was unnecessary and would have disturbed the residents in the neighborhood. Those are the kind of things you do, but you start off of how do we make it work? You don't start off by saying, we're not sure if we want this in our neighborhood. I'm a big believer in I do not believe in not in my backyard. I'll talk about taxes. Be assured, council and staff are always looking for ways to save money, and we are finding success. Our energy costs are actually lower at our facilities right now than they were years ago. We are saving hundreds of thousands of dollars each year on street lighting. We are proactively repaving roads before they reach a state of disrepair that they can't be repaired, and that will save future councils millions of dollars. We have hired an internal auditor whose job involves looking for savings. We have created a new position along with an advisory board to invest the city's money and increase our rate of return. We've actually made millions of dollars on that, millions of dollars more than we were making before. Our two biggest lines in the budget are policing and roads. If we want to cut spending, we need to look at spending in those areas, and I don't think that's an area most people want to cut spending. Or we can look at smaller cuts across the board. That doesn't work either. Staff is always telling us ways to save money, and council is always saying, we're not sure if our residents will go for that. A good example was in late June, staff came to us and said our scheduling had reduced on transit because of COVID. We had routes running on hourly service, and staff said we can save a lot of money by keeping them on hourly service, and council overruled them and said, yeah, that's not a really good idea for people having to wait an hour for a bus. So we instituted back to half-hour service, and that's the kind of thing we're constantly faced with. Yeah, it sounds great. You can bring in an Elkites consultant to look for efficiencies, but those efficiencies are often services that our Barrie residents are using. So I'm not saying I want to see taxes go up. During these inflationary times when household dollars are being stretched, we must try to avoid putting yet another burden on struggling families. But at the same time, let's not make their lives more difficult by cutting services that they need and use. To sum up, Barrie needs calm, steady, and reasoned leadership over the next 4 years, and that is what I am offering. Thanks, everyone, for coming out this evening, and a special thanks to the Chamber and Barrie Home Builders for putting this on. Thank you very much. I'm Barrie Ward.
I want to thank the candidates tonight. Thank you very much for sharing your platforms with us. Now get out. No, I would like to invite you to go on downstairs at this time, the candidates to go downstairs and get ready for a meet and greet downstairs. So we'll see you shortly.
Yes.